Hello there, it's Austin. So I recently brewed 2 batches of disappointing beer. This Earl Grey and lemon sour ended up way too sour for my liking, and this German Leichtbier ended up a little too sulfury with not enough malt backbone to back up the tastes. So I thought maybe we can save 2 kind of disappointing beers and bring them back from either ends of the flavor spectrum by blending them together to make this. So let's get started. The first of the 2 beers, the Berliner Weisse Arnold Palmer Sour, we'll start off with right around 4.8 gallons of reverse osmosis water, adjusted with the following additions of calcium chloride, Epsom salt, and gypsum. For the fermentables, I'll be using about half Pilsner and half pale wheat malt. And this pretty simple malt bill will be mashed together at 150 degrees for right around 60 minutes. Next step is bringing our wort to a boil and adding in our hop additions. For this batch, I'll be trying out a 1/4 ounce of Vanguard hops. As the wort starts to cool, I'll pause the cooling at 200 degrees and add in around 15 tea bags of Earl Grey tea. Be sure to pull these out after 4 minutes or so we don't extract any extra tannins. With the wort cooled the rest of the way, we'll transfer it to the fermenter and check our original gravity. I'm pitching a packet of sour VCA from Melon, which I found out later I probably should have co-pitched to keep that acid in check, and fermenting for around 16 days. During this time, I'll make a lemon zest tincture with about 50 grams of lemon zest and 2 ounces of vodka. I'll let it soak for a couple days and then transfer the final product directly into the keg during packaging. At that point, we'll drop it down into the keezer and carbonate at serving pressure for about a week, and then our very sour Berliner Weisse with tea and a splash of lemon is ready to enjoy. For the second beer of the blend, I'll be brewing a German Leichtbier. I actually started this beer by collecting water at the same time I was brewing a German Helles, and then reusing my grains after the initial mash from the Helles to kind of perform a second runnings mash. After around 30 minutes or so, I had gotten to about half of the original gravity that I was looking for, so I ended up adding right around 2 pounds of Pilsner malt to bridge the gap and get me to the original gravity I was looking for. Next, I added in the water additions for this batch, which I had forgotten earlier because, brewing 2 batches at once gets a little hectic, before bringing the wort to boil for right around 60 minutes. At the 40-minute mark, I added in some Hallertau Magnum, and at the 10-minute mark, I added in some Hallertau Mittelfrüh. Not overkill, but some traditional hops for a Leichtbier. After a quick gravity check, it was time to cool the wort down and transfer it into the PET carboy that I would be fermenting in. For this size batch, I'm using a 3-gallon wide-mouth Fermonster. The yeast I'm using today is another Lallemand strained. They're Nova Lager, which is a hybrid lager yeast. Using a cooler and some ice packs, I'll actually be fermenting this at traditional lager temperatures. I was able to keep my chamber at right around 56 degrees before removing the ice packs and letting it finish up at room temperature. After checking my final gravity, it was time to transfer from my PET carboy over into my serving keg. I'll be carbonating it at serving pressure, or right around 14 psi, and then after letting it try to clarify for a few weeks, our German Leichtbier is ready to blend. So to be perfectly clear, saving 2 bad beers by mixing them together is generally not a great idea. However, in this very specific scenario, both beers are pretty similar style-wise, and the problems I had with the flavor were nicely remedied by mixing them together. As far as the sour goes, maybe pinching a full packet of the Philly sour yeast really over-soured it. And unfortunately, you just can't get much flavor out of it. It's almost making me cry. To be honest, I don't know if I've ever had a commercial example of a light beer, but this one is really, really light, and I think with the Nova Lager yeast, the amounts of sulfur that I'm getting is just a little off-putting. It's really not too bad, it's just not something that I'd really want to drink much of. But anyways, the surprise star of the show is definitely the blend. I'm pretty happy that I was able to salvage some of this beer because the flavor in this Earl Grey and lemon sour is excellent. It's definitely giving those Arnold Palmer notes that I was aiming for. The Earl Grey really contributes a great full tea character that kind of evolves as the beer sits and warms up a little bit. Brewing the sour half of this blend with a little bit more control over exactly how much souring, maybe with the traditional or a kettle souring method, would probably be the way to go, or maybe with a little more experience with Philly sour yeast, different batch size or pitch rates, it could probably control that a little bit. Overall, I wouldn't recommend the process very much, but I do like the result. Cheers!